Well, there are no more of them, number one. I mean, there will never be another. This is kind of like a fantasy land here too. I mean, I don't know if this is the real world or not. They tried to warn us about Boyd Coddington, his rise, his struggles, and the empire behind American Hot Rod. Secrets came out, drama happened, and lessons were learned. Join us as we dive deep. Early warnings, cracks, and why nobody listened. Boyd Coddington stood tall as a custom car king. He shaped a whole generation of hot rod lovers with his special style and amazing vision. When American Hot Rod came on TV, it showed him as the man behind the machines, the face of speed, shine, and master skills. But for those who were paying attention, there were warnings, sharp, loud, and early, yet no one listened. From the first season of American Hot Rod, things didn't quite feel right. The camera often caught crew members breaking down, walking out, or even getting fired right there on the spot. It was meant to be fun to watch, but for those with an eye on the industry, it showed a much darker truth. One after another, talented workers either stormed out or quietly slipped away. Some lasted months, others only survived weeks. That wasn't just a coincidence. People began to ask, how could such a talented team fall apart so quickly? The answer was never about the talent. It was the pressure, the intense non-stop demand that drained even the best workers in the shop. Boyd's love for perfection wasn't the problem, it was how that perfection was demanded. At first, American Hot Rod was praised for giving the world an inside look at custom car building. But behind the builds and between the frames, there was trouble. Projects had tight deadlines that left no room for breathing. Tempers went high. Bad communication spread like wildfire. One little mistake could cost someone their job, and it did often. What many didn't realize was that these warning signs weren't just for the show. They showed real life inside Boyd's garage. And here's the thing, many of the people who left weren't just background workers, they were masters in their own right. Painters like Charlie Hutton and body experts like Blue Bear tried to weather the storm, but eventually they were pushed out or chose to leave before breaking. Others like Dwayne Mayer tried to stay loyal, but the environment wore everyone out. Then there was Chip Foose. Foose wasn't just another builder, he was the designer who helped take Boyd's vision to the next level. But when he left the shop, everything changed. Their friendship fell apart, and Boyd saw Foose's leaving as a betrayal. Fans would later learn that behind the scenes, there had been tension growing for a long time. Chip wanted creative freedom, something that felt impossible under Boyd's tough control. It was no surprise that once Chip left, others followed him. And who could blame them? Foose created a different kind of shop, a place where creativity didn't come at the cost of peace. As he gained fame through overhauling, people started to compare him. The contrast was hard to ignore. While Boyd's team suffered under the weight of the show, Chip's team thrived. You could almost hear the industry whisper, "We told you so." But viewers at home stayed glued to the screen. The fast builds, the shouting matches, the sharp turns in every episode. It was something viewers were glued to. It was also misleading because what most fans didn't know was that the drama wasn't staged. It was real. Real deadlines, real battles, real burnout. And it was costing more than just employee energy to work. It was eating away at Boyd's reputation. At car shows, the rumors grew louder. Other builders started to avoid doing business with Boyd's crew. Clients began asking more questions. Were the builds as strong as they looked? Was the polish hiding something darker underneath? In the hot rod world, reputation is everything, and Boyd's was starting to slip. But let's pause here for a second. Boyd wasn't hated. In fact, he was still respected for his talent. No one doubted his skills. What people questioned was his leadership. They asked, could a man so gifted truly keep a team together? Sadly, the answer kept showing itself loud and clear, and the show didn't help. If anything, it only made things worse. Editors pushed the most dramatic moments forward. Arguments got more airtime than breakthroughs. The emotional toll became part of the entertainment. Viewers watched employees struggle under stress and thought it was part of the charm. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. That was someone's real breaking point, not just good television. The saddest part, Boyd didn't seem to notice. Or maybe he did, but didn't care. In one scene, a worker was fired mid-project. Another time, someone left quietly after being humiliated. It was treated like an everyday thing. A revolving door, replaceable faces. But these weren't extras. They were skilled craftsmen with families, dreams, and years of experience. And once they left, they rarely looked back. Every warning came from real people who once admired Boyd but left hurt. Some of them spoke out later. They described a shop run on fear, not teamwork. A place where yelling was more common than praise, where a single missed bolt could mean you were out of a job. And for what? To hit a television deadline. It was clear that something had gone wrong. The show had started as a celebration of car culture, but became a spotlight on workplace breakdown. Let's not forget the cars. Some of the builds, while shocking, weren't always up to the mark underneath. Viewers saw the shine, the chrome, the gleam. But former employees mentioned skipped steps, rushed paint jobs, and last-minute fixes before the cameras rolled. It wasn't always the perfection it pretended to be, and still nobody really stopped it. Fans continued watching. Boyd kept building. Employees kept leaving. The truth was obvious, but no one wanted to believe it. Boyd was too big, too iconic, too legendary to fail, right? Wrong. It turns out even legends can be wrong. Even great men can fall short when leadership turns into control, when vision turns into tunnel vision. The hot rod world didn't turn on Boyd, but it did start to distance itself. Because behind every beautiful build was a warning. This can't last forever. And it didn't. Foose proved that a great shop could run on respect. Other builders rose in Boyd's shadow, learning from his genius, but also from his mistakes. That's the real legacy. Boyd showed us what's possible with vision, but also what happens when you ignore the people behind the process. So when people say they tried to warn us about Boyd Coddington, they aren't just talking about financial trouble or fame getting out of hand. They're talking about the missed chances to treat people better. The talent that was lost too soon. The drama we mistook for drive. And above all, they're talking about the truth that was always there, if only we had listened. This brings us to deeper details: financial wreckage, title trouble, and the empire's quiet collapse. Some people fall because of failure, others fall because of success that was built too fast. Boyd Coddington's fall came with the sound of engines still running, cameras still rolling, and fans still cheering, right before everything turned quiet. What no one saw coming or chose to ignore was the growing storm behind the garage doors. Boyd had fame. He had the clients. He had the name that echoed through the halls of every car show. But behind everything, his business was crumbling. Let's start with the money. Coddington's shop was a financial mess. Despite the stream of projects, the business didn't seem to be making enough profit to match the energy pouring in. While fans saw one polished car after another, insiders knew those projects were expensive. Sometimes the builds cost more than the clients could pay. And in custom car culture, late payments mean deep trouble. In one major case, a customer pulled out of a build midway and left Boyd's business nearly $500,000 in the red. That wasn't just a bump in the road, it was a serious crash. The shop had to restructure itself, rebrand some of its efforts, and dig itself out of debt. That was back in the late 1990s, but the money problems didn't end there. They only got worse. Even with the boost from American Hot Rod, which premiered in the early 2000s, the business was still bleeding cash. Television brought in exposure, but not always income. The show placed more pressure on Boyd and his team to build quickly and impress viewers, but that didn't always mean more money in the bank. And then came the registration scandal. It started with rumors and questions about how Boyd was getting so many custom vehicles street legal so quickly. Normally, when you build a car from scratch, it has to go through a complicated process to meet emissions laws and safety checks. But somehow Boyd was bypassing much of that. The trick: registering those cars as old-fashioned vehicles. That sounds harmless at first, but many of the cars were not antiques at all. They were brand new builds with fresh frames, engines, bodies, and electronics. Labeling them as restorations allowed Boyd to skip key inspections, avoid checks, and reduce tax fees. It worked until it didn't. California state officials caught on. They launched an investigation and quickly uncovered a pattern. It wasn't just one or two cars, it was dozens. The law was clear. Misrepresenting the age or origin of a vehicle to avoid taxes is illegal. Boyd's empire was suddenly facing a legal crisis, and this time it wasn't going to be resolved with paint and polish. Boyd eventually pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor charge. The sentence was not extreme, community service and a fine of a few thousand, but the damage was far more than legal. His name was stained and trust was touched. Longtime clients began to question his ethics, and for a man who built his brand on precision and pride, that loss of trust was like a cracked glass. It didn't always show from the outside, but it ruined everything beneath. Let's not forget what that meant for the team either. Morale in the shop dropped. Some of the crew felt betrayed, others worried that their work might be associated with fraud. And while the show kept airing new episodes, the mood behind the scenes was far from fun. Another issue that affected the business was timing. Projects piled up, schedules got tighter, mistakes increased. Several customers began complaining that their cars were either delayed or delivered in less than perfect condition. For a business that used to be praised for its flawless craftsmanship, this was a red flag waving right in front of everyone. But instead of slowing down and fixing the core problems, the shop tried to power through. Bad idea. More pressure was added. Employees became overwhelmed. Tools were rushed. Communication failed. And right in the middle of all of it, Boyd remained the face of the company, smiling for cameras and appearing at events while the structure beneath him bent under the weight of stress. Outside observers, especially people in the hot rod industry, saw what was happening. They warned that the business model wasn't sustainable. The builds were too complex for the pace. The show was too dramatic for real productivity. The money wasn't being managed carefully. But those warnings once again went unheard. Then came the inevitable American hot rod cancellation. After 5 seasons, the network pulled the plug. Publicly, it seemed like a simple end to a reality series. But for Boyd's business, it was a sentence. The show had kept the brand alive and had kept the shop in the spotlight. Without the cameras, the project slowed, and this also affected the income. And the final blow, the shop officially shut down in June of 2008, just months after Boyd passed away. The empire that once stood as a symbol of hot rod glory was now silent. But Boyd's business wasn't the only one to crash in this fashion. The FSD Hot Rod Ranch, another big name in the custom car world, went through a nearly identical collapse years later. Financial stress, mounting debt, and overpromising builds led to bankruptcy, lawsuits, and closed doors. It's a repeating story in the custom car industry, a story that starts with passion but ends with paperwork, missed payments, and empty garages. Why does this keep happening? One reason is the gap between creativity and business. Builders like Boyd are artists. They see cars as canvases, engines as sculptures, and bodywork as expression. But running a shop requires budgets, schedules, payroll, and compliance. When those two worlds collide, the results can be explosive. And if you don't surround yourself with strong managers and advisors, the creative fire can burn down the entire structure. Boyd may have been a visionary, but even visionaries need balance. The financial warnings were clear. The cracks in the system were visible. Employees and competitors pointed out the flaws. Customers raised eyebrows, but the drive to keep going, to stay famous, to meet the next deadline overpowered all the alarms. At times, even suppliers and partners expressed concern. Late payments, shifting delivery dates, rush orders. These are the kinds of signs that every business expert knows to watch for. But inside the shop, the focus stayed on the cars, not the costs. The most tragic part of Boyd's financial downfall wasn't just the loss of money, it was the loss of opportunity. He had built something rare, a brand that blended Hollywood with horsepower, style with steel. Had it been handled differently, the Coddington name might still be on the front of a bustling shop today. Instead, what remained was silence. The garage that was once filled with welders and grinders now stood empty. The empire didn't collapse all at once, it happened in layers. Each financial mistake, each missed warning, each cut corner added up. The lesson here is bigger than Boyd. It speaks to the whole custom car world, and honestly to any business driven by passion. Talent is not enough. A name is not enough. Even fame isn't enough. If the foundation isn't strong, the whole thing falls apart. And when it does, it doesn't just hurt the builder. It affects the workers, the families, the fans, and the industry. Still, people remember Boyd's cars. They remember the builds, the shine, the drama. But those who worked alongside him remember something else too. The financial fear, the confusion, the fear of keeping up with a system that was running on fumes. And just like that, the legend ran out of gas. As things settled from the financial troubles and legal battles of Boyd Coddington's empire, the real story shifted to what happened inside his shop. The lives and struggles of the people who built the legendary cars and the fallout that followed. While the cameras captured the glossy final products and occasional conflicts, few understood the deep challenges faced by the crew behind the scenes. Boyd's relationship with his team was complicated and often tense, and his departure from longtime partner Chip Foose marked the beginning of a new chapter filled with conflict and heartbreak. Foose's exit wasn't just a business split. It was personal. Once a trusted partner and creative force, Foose left to build his own legacy, taking much of Boyd's top talent with him. This was a major blow to Boyd's shop, leaving it short-staffed and strained. The rivalry that followed was felt deeply by everyone involved. As Boyd reportedly viewed Foose's growing success as a threat, many workers found themselves caught in the middle. Some choosing to follow Foose's more relaxed and respectful environment, while others remained loyal but struggled under Boyd's increasingly harsh leadership. The pressure inside Boyd's shop was relentless. Employees described a culture of fear and control where mistakes could cost you your job, sometimes in front of TV cameras, adding public humiliation to the mix. The harsh environment drained everyone, and the constant demand for perfection under tight deadlines pushed many skilled workers to their breaking point. People who once loved their craft began to dread each day, weighed down by impossible expectations and little appreciation. This toxic atmosphere created a drain of talent, with some walking away quietly, others leaving mid-project, and some fired in dramatic scenes that played out as reality TV but carried real consequences. Despite the talent and passion in the shop, loyalty became a fragile thing. Workers felt undervalued and replaceable, and the emotional toll of constant stress, public shaming, and unpredictable leadership wore on everyone. People talked a lot about Boyd's story because it was not perfect. He changed the hot rod world and made it bigger, but he also had problems. Because of Boyd's story, many people in the hot rod world started to care more about how workers feel. They realized that when workers are scared or unhappy, the work gets worse. So they try to make shops safer and kinder places where people want to come every day. They learned that respect and good work go together. Even with all the problems, Boyd's name still means a lot. His cars are still famous and loved. Collectors look for his cars and new builders learn from his style. His work lives on in the world of hot rods. Boyd's life teaches us something important. It shows that having a great idea is not enough. You need to take care of the people who help make that idea real. A good leader listens, respects, and supports the team. Success is about more than money or fame. It's about the people who build the dream. Boyd's story also showed how TV can help or hurt. His show made hot rods popular, but sometimes the cameras made workers' problems look like drama for fun. This taught the industry to be careful about how reality TV shows treat workers. Real people have feelings, and their struggles are not just entertainment. The show American Hot Rod brought hot rodding to many people who never knew about it. It made people excited about custom cars and showed the hard work behind them. But it also showed the stress and battles that can happen when you work under pressure. After Boyd's sudden passing in 2008, his widow Jo Coddington took on the role of protecting his legacy. Jo Coddington was a key figure on American Hot Rod, known for keeping things running smoothly at Boyd Coddington shop.